Good day everyone, so hope you're all doing really well. Genshin Impact has recently introduced a third-person shooter mechanic into the game. So with the arrival of the Snezhnaya region, we've gotten a lot of things like World Quest and even a bit of a leaderboard scoring system that's tied to this new mechanic, which is really exciting. So in today's video, we'll try and answer a couple of key questions and then do a bit of a review on this game mode. And I think the key question we need to ask is this game mode too difficult for a lot of casual players? Now, I'm gonna be very honest. As someone with prior experience in Valorant, Marvel Rivals, Overwatch, etc., for me, this game mode is incredibly fun. I love the fact that there is a shooter mechanic, and the ones that we've seen in Miliastra Wonderland, the custom platform in Genshin that allows you to create all sorts of custom game modes, they haven't really been up to par, or at least not as polished as what the devs can obviously make. And that is certainly a very, like, I think for me at least, a breath of fresh air. But on the other hand, I also understand that when you suddenly have to go from managing how your character moves, where you're aiming with your character, having free resources that you need to constantly juggle and manage, and on top of that apply an elemental system, now you're combining shooter mechanics with MOBA elements, and that is not intuitive for a lot of players. So to kind of put it in a different way, with Genshin Impact we've had the traditional Genshin combat system, we've had the devs introduce the TCG game mode, and we've also had the rhythm game that's been introduced as well. And what all of this means is that for you to be effective in, for example, the TCG, means that you've had to have picked up a couple of new skills. You had to start thinking, how do I play this turn-based like card game? And there are lots of things that you need to collect, unlock, and buy cards and all these sorts of things. Very much the same with the rhythm game as well. And that is exactly what this new sort of end game is. You've got to level up the travelers' armaments by going through the overworld, collecting, finishing quests, and eventually you get stronger. Your guns are going to do more damage. So you can see here, this is some of the earlier footage when I just started playing out with the game mode. You can see my guns and weapons aren't as strong, and I'm one of those stubborn people that will do the hard mode and try and finish it the first time around with the minimal amounts of gear, because I'm crazy like that. But that's the sort of thing that for me is exciting. But for a lot of people, this type of game mode is very challenging, because you've got to manage a lot of things. It's a new skill that if you don't have prior gameplay knowledge or something similar, or other games that you've had in the past, people struggle to pick up. And you might say, well, okay, is that the only reason? And the answer is no, because there are obviously mobile shooters in the market, but predominantly your first person and third person shooter games are more associated with console and PC. So for people that are only used to playing mobile for whatever reason, be it budget or just be it preference or whatever, being suddenly thrown into this type of game mode can be very difficult. So you can understand the legitimate complaints that people have, in particular that some of the overworld quest and primo gems are locked behind you engaging with the system, which is something that we can now argue and say, should this have been a system separate from the main gameplay, like for instance TCG is, or is the incorporation into the Snezhnaya region something that is valid? And my argument would be, I think that since Snezhnaya itself is supposed to be more of an end game region, you're supposed to be the type of player that's already gone through the entirety of Tevat. You're supposed to have done multiple events. You're supposed to have understood that the game itself has given you many little mini games and mechanics that you can get used to, ad hoc type of games with their own little bit of skill expression, and even the different combat events and so on. So once you package all of that, the type of Genshin player that would get to Snezhnaya should have, at least in theory, had exposure to Miliastra Wonderland, and hence I think it's not unreasonable to expect people to rightfully adapt to this type of game mode, just given a bit of time. I mean, obviously, this isn't just going to be like your favorite Hu Tao team that you can go and crush the overworld with. And speaking of Hu Tao, that's the problem. A lot of casual players that play Genshin genuinely struggle with the combat content. A lot of people think that these YouTube guides, especially in the past, where you tell people how to build teams, what to do, what rotation, that's not just a nothing burger. I mean, for those of us that have played years and years and do our own thing on theory crafting, it's like, why the hell would I want to listen to the Jeff, the Genshin scientist, and all these people when I can just do it myself and better? But the thing is, a lot of people do listen to them because a lot of people need it. And heck, the game itself even has the, what do you call it, interfaces to say, level up this talent, this is the priority, this is how you build a character, precisely because little Timmy, the 12-year-old Chinese kid, is going to put a defense percentage circlet on their Hu Tao because they saw that every time they attack they lose HP and they don't want to die in the overworld. Yes, it sounds silly, but that is legitimately the types of players we have, and that's the majority of players we have in Genshin Impact. In any case, enough on that. Let's talk about the actual game mode itself, and I'll try and keep this a bit short. Okay, I've got a couple of problems with the gun gameplay. I think the first thing is when the action is there and it's well balanced and lots of things are happening and the enemies are putting pressure on you, that's when this game mode can come and feel alive. But consequently, if the AI is stupid, if it gets stuck, if it doesn't know what to do, if it's not engaging meaningfully with you, or there's no real feel of a threat, then what you can sometimes find is that as you go through a couple of regions, by the way, nice aim from my side there in the background footage, but as you go through the different little stages and such, it feels like the combat can become intense and then suddenly it's just very unengaging. It just feels like, oh, okay, is that it? Is all the action now over? You kind of get it. It's the flow of the combat itself, I think, is very, very uneven, and it's something that they can work on with the enemy AI. The other thing that I think is very annoying about this game mode is that once you're close to cover or trying to peek corners, the reticle itself kind of is a bit of it's slightly miscalibrated, where even though you're aiming at the enemy, you're hitting the wall. And I think this is something that carries over from the built-in aiming system when you have have a character with arrows and you're trying to hit the enemies directly, and that's a problem that's been in the game, and it's kind of sad that they ported over that logic into this gun game mode. So those would be my kind of two biggest gripes. I think a couple of other things that I would love to see is more variety in terms of the weapons and so on. So definitely, hopefully Genshin can expand this, more abilities with the Traveler. I do find that the over-reliance on the element system for you to be able to be successful kind of diminishes the skill that you get from applying traditional FPS techniques. So you don't really need to peek corners and be that mindful. You can abuse your health as a resource against enemies. It's not like 1 or 2 hits, game over. I mean, you can just stand there, hit them a couple of times. And then I think also this game mode is not a game that really rewards you for being patient, taking your time at corners. Literally just go YOLO, throw a couple of grenades, throw a shock grenade, throw a pyro grenade, get the element system going. And I think that's the intention from Genshin, is to let the elemental system itself kind of do the heavy lifting, whereas your primary gun is just there really to pick off the enemies. And that's also why if you cycle through the frag grenade, you'll notice that there is a very distinct pattern with how they've matched the elements. So for instance, you'll get the cryo, and then thereafter you'll switch into pyro, so you can trigger melt. And obviously once you I forgot. Maybe I forgot the order, but there's definitely an order with the frag grenades that's very natural. I think, for instance, before the cryo, you get the hydro, so you wet the enemies, then you can freeze them, and then then you can switch into pyro, and then you can melt them. So you have these types of combos that kind of hints at that the developers really want you to play with the elements and let that do half of the work, and then obviously the shooting is just auxiliary or ancillary to that. So I definitely would like to see more emphasis with different weapon types on you shooting and engaging with the shooting aspect of the game, and certainly the movements as well. I find the Traveler's movements to be a bit limited, but it's kind of cool to be able to reload and slide at the same time. So it means that repositioning allows you to keep up that cadence and flow with the combat, which is pretty nice to see. But other than that, it's still early days even for myself. I haven't cleared out all of the content. I definitely know there's some pretty cool epic overworld things that'll still happen. So once we go through all of that, I'll definitely have a bit of an update. But so far, I definitely do like this system quite a bit. I do think there is legitimate reasons why people can complain, but on the other hand, I also feel like the Genshin devs do they did add things like aim assist, which I don't have on, and a couple of other little goodies to enable players just to cope with the mechanism. So it is just it's just a type of thing that I think once players grow into it, they'll definitely enjoy it. But yeah, that is pretty much it from my side. I'm very interested to hear what you guys think of the game mode. Obviously, if you really don't like it, write an essay. If you really do like it or you think there are certain obvious points that I haven't covered, let me know so as well. For me, the funniest or the best part of this gameplay is what you can see in the background, taking Gun Traveler out of Teyvat and just causing havoc. The previous video, we did all sorts of nonsense, so do check that out if you're interested. But from my side, thank you so much for watching today's video, and hopefully you guys will have an awesome week. Cheers.